Hello YouTube, my name is Ricardo Lino and I'm a wheel addict. Welcome to Skate Talks. Today my guest is Australian, but he lives in LA, Los Angeles. He just turned 31 years old, and over the last few months I'm pretty sure that you've seen a lot of stuff from him. Basically, he is the guy behind the first video that you've seen with Damn Skates. He has a pretty unique style, and I don't really think he forgot. So, ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is Mr. Robbie Pitts. So let's give Mr. Robbie Pitts a call and see what he's up to.
Hey man,
How you doing?
pretty good. Lovely to hear from you. Very nice to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Robbie. Did you just got to the car or you just end up staying in the basement?
I'm staying in the basement. It's fine. I'll stay here.
You're not scared of spiders?
No, nothing of that. I just thought maybe my housemates upstairs moving around might be loud or something for you on your end, but maybe it's okay.
Nah, it won't be a problem. Anyway, whatever, it's the safest for you.
Cool. I'm safe down here.
Okay, so just a little introduction for whoever is listening to this. So right now it's 8 a.m. for me in South Africa. What time is it there, Robbie?
It's 11:15 p.m. In Los Angeles.
Okay. So we're
California,
we're in
United
completely
States.
different days.
Yes.
I had my rest.
Yeah, very true. You're just beginning. I'm just ending.
And that's it. Okay, so, oh my God, I'm just moving things with my hands and it's making a noise. Anyway, so let's start
That's
with
so
this.
cool.
Robbie,
All right.
for how long have you been skating and what did got you into skating?
Well, I've been skating since basically 1998. That's when I really first started skating and kind of got hooked on, I guess, what I would call and what most other people call aggressive skating. I had previously skated before that. Like, I can't remember the exact year I first tried on inline skates. But before 98, I definitely had been on skates, like going to roller rink, the part of school and holiday programs, and just kind of doing it. It was obviously a very common and popular thing for people to do. So as a kid, I'd already been on skates, and I think even before 1998, I got a pair of skates for either Christmas or birthday, and they were a brand called Malibu, and they were just a very standard Kmart brand type skate that had 3 type of buckles on them instead of a lacing system. But yeah, so
it was it aggressive skate with 3 buckles?
No, it wasn't aggressive. It was just, a recreational skate that you would get from, I think you would get it from Kmart. Very, very cheap skate. Mm-hmm. But it was around 1998, just before my birthday, which just passed recently, which is on the 20th of April. And
Late
so
happy
just
birthday.
a little bit. Thank you very much. Thank you. I just turned 31. So, it was coming up to my 11th birthday, and how I got into it was in primary school, my friends, we used to do this thing, I guess, in schools at that time, was called, I just went to a co-education primary school. And but at the time, I guess they did this thing called religious education. It was just one random class, maybe once a month or a week. I can't remember which it was. And yeah, it's just everyone sort of participated if you weren't religious or not. And I guess to preface that is I didn't grow up in a religious family or anything. But and anyway, what happened was a lot of the kids came together from all the different classes, and not only at the same year, but I had some friends in the year above. And when we were in this class together, they brought all of these rollerblading magazines, and I'd never seen anything like that before. So we'd all look at them, and it was like Daily Bread and 4 in a Row, which was the Australian magazine at the time, and they just looked incredible to me. It was something I'd never really seen, and I was just so captivated by it. And kind of from then on, when we'd have recess and lunchtime, all my friends would all be talking about, grinding and going skating on the weekend, because that's kind of what they're all doing. So me and my friends of my age was, thinking about getting skates. And it was one Friday evening with my family. We'd usually go to the shopping center to have, do grocery shopping and have a meal. And on the way out, the very last thing before the parking lot was a sports store. And on the very outside of the sports store was a huge wall of inline skates. And I was like, oh my God, Mom, can we please go in there? Can we please go in there? Because I wanted aggressive skates, and I knew of Oxygens, and I really, really wanted a pair of these Oxygens. They were like a baby blue color.
Mm-hmm. Was it the Tasha skate? The Tasha Oxygen or something?
I don't think that they were those. I feel like hers were a higher cut, but these were like the low top versions. And I think they were just
that
called,
was later.
I think
that
they
was
were just
later.
Called,
yeah, the high tops.
Yeah,
there was the low top and the high top. The high top was
Yeah.
a dark gray one, and the low top was the color that you're saying, like a super light gray, like a baby blue, something like that.
Yeah. Well, older family friend had them, and I just thought they looked really, really cool. So I wanted those. And obviously, as a kid, I would get very, very small amount of money for my birthday. And these skates, I think, were like $380 or something. So for a kid who's 11, turning 11, it's like an absurd amount of money. But I guess I kind of convinced, through my enthusiasm, that I really wanted these skates. So instead of getting the $380 one, I got the model down, which is kind of like a greeny, brassy gold kind of color. It was called the Oxygen Argon Stock.
Yeah, I remember those.
TJ Weber skated them quite often. So I got those. I think they were like $315. And what I would do is I would mow my family's lawn every week, and I'd have $5 each time I did it. So I was like crossing off the list, But that's basically how I got into it. And me and basically 2 or 3 other friends of ours in primary school, we just started like skating around the street. And my friend had this house that had a veranda, went all the way around it. So we would just go skate right around and just do laps of his house. And we were kind of really influenced by the Mighty Ducks. And there was also a TV show in Australia called Heartbreak High, which often featured at least like one of the characters was an inline skater.
I remember. Was it John Pollard or something like that?
Yeah, John Pollard was one of them. He was a character called Bolton. And
yeah, I remember that.
Was,
that used to play also in Europe, huh? That was not just an Australian show. Yeah, I used to see it, and I used to be a big fan of him.
Oh, rad. That's awesome. Yeah, I know it was in English, like it was also shown in England as well. But yeah, that's really cool to hear.
Yeah, I remember that he was crazy at skating. I remember he was one of the first guys that I've seen trying front flips in street, like real street front flips, which... Back then, I guess the Australians were the only ones trying. There was a Swiss guy, Nicky Bruce, I think that was his name, trying. But other than that, it was only Australians. Like Metzelerner used to do them. But okay, going back to what you're saying. Sorry.
Oh yeah, well, of course, that's fun. I mean, yeah, John Pollard who played Bolton, and then there was also Callum Mulvey who played Drazik, which was another character later in the years. But they were like really influential to me, and I just kind of got inspired to skate. I think as well as what I was really interested in is that aggressive skating seemed to be something that was kind of anti-authoritarian and sort of embraced non-conformity. I tried traditional sports beforehand, particularly cricket, and I always felt the pressure of being in a team and not being really that kind of physically capable of being good at sports, and always felt like I was at the low end of a team, and like the adults like telling you how to perform and what to do, and I kind of didn't like that authority, and also because I wasn't being rewarded by feeling good by being a good cricket player or whatever. So all of this, like with skating, seemed to be you just went on your own, you did whatever, and it kind of was also there was this like element of that you were kind of doing something you shouldn't, like it was a little bit naughty. And I kind of like that because I was always a pretty I would say generally I was, a good kid. I had my moments, but I always was intrigued by people who were kind of doing bad things.
It was your opportunity to be a gangster.
In a way, yeah. So anyway, that's I guess from there, and I should also say this. This was in a small town in northern part of
Sorry, we lost you there for a second.
Palmerston.
We lost you there for a second. Can you just say where was it? Was in a small town, and then
Yeah. I'll repeat. It's a small town in northern Australia called Palmerston. So it was like way away from the main areas of Australia, which are Sydney and Melbourne.
Okay,
Melbourne
how many
being
people
where
would
I
live in
later
that city? How big was?
I think at the time maybe 25,000.
Yeah.
It was really small.
Yeah, it's kind of no. It's like the place where I come from in Portugal. The place where I come
really?
from is like 10,000, so it's even smaller.
Oh wow, sure.
Yeah, but it is what it is, man. We're here.
Yeah, no, that's right, exactly, right.
in two completely different continents. I grew up in Europe. I'm in Africa. You grew up in Australia. You're in America, and it doesn't matter where we come from. But something that stayed on my mind right now after what you just said is, we all know like the rest of the skating industry, like whoever is skating nowadays, when they heard of Robbie Pitts, they obviously know like a super original style, not just in skating, but also the way you dress and everything. But it's funny because something that just stayed on my mind was, wait, Robbie Pitts' first skate were gold. So so that was it, right?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, they were kind of an unusual color, that's for sure.
Yeah, see, it said it all. It was all there, man. So that's the question that I'm sure I made it to you a few months ago.
Yep.
And I guess like everyone does it. Where does your influence come from? I do know the era that comes from, but I don't know enough. So can you tell us a little bit?
All right, sure. Yeah. Well, I guess first to say off, like I always, so I guess there's a number of things. So being young and redheaded, first of all, I would often be told that, like, oh, you're so lucky to have your hair color. Like, this is obviously by like adults telling me this. And I never really appreciated kind of having red hair and it being a sign of individuality and a uniqueness. It's something that I would now obviously later embrace. But as a kid, I was kind of ostracized a lot and, made fun of because I was different and because of the way I looked. Mm-hmm. So I always admired people who had a very strong visual appearance, that looked different, that were alternative. And, like I was saying, like characters like Bolton and Drazik and Hype High, they were kind of these more like rebellious punk kind of looking people, 90s punk kind of people. And so I always loved looking at people who looked different and challenged. And I never had quite a lot of self-confidence. So I always admired people like that, but I wasn't so much like willing to, stand out and do that myself. So I guess as I got older, one of the things I also was always interested in is the way in which people looked in different like generations past. You're looking like the 1700s and you're like people dressed completely differently, obviously, to the modern age. Mm-hmm. And I was always really intrigued by that like dress and fashion styles can obviously change. And I always kind of liked the idea of dressing up because it has this aspect of like transformity. You can be someone else. It's like playing dress up, like it's acting. You particularly as I said, I wasn't someone who was so self-confident and had a lot of sense of who I was. Dressing up and being different, I guess,
boost their confidence somehow.
Well, it could be a way, but I didn't really embrace it until I was about 18. So before that, I was really inspired by, like one of the first people that I was immediately inspired by was John Elliott, because he was like the kind of rock and roll aesthetic that he embraced, from like Brain Fear Gone onwards, just really, really intrigued me, and I loved it. And then another person later who inspired me was Brandon Mateer, from Kansas City from KFC. And he, the way he looked, he dressed in baggy clothes of the time as well, and often wore a lot of, you know, skate orientated t-shirts and whatnot. But he had really, really long hair, and I loved his long hair, so I grew my hair out. Much to my I remember my mum not wanting me to grow my hair out. She kept saying that you need to have a style, you can't just grow your hair long. But I was sort of, you know, insistent, so I grew it long, and then it really was up until I can really recall this one moment. It was in Daily Bread, 2005, I think the January issue, which featured the interview with Charles Dunkel.
Yeah, I remember that one.
And there is a lucky 7 of Ollie Short in that, and he's doing a fish brain stall on this little tiny fence, like an edge of a pole that's attached to a wire fence, and he's wearing these like stonewashed grey tight jeans, you know, a black and white striped button shirt, and he had his long hair with his you know, fringe, his bangs, and all black M12s, and it was a complete antithesis of the total style that you would see at the time. And I'd always loved seeing photos of him. It's like, you know, wearing flares and bell bottoms and whatnot in the 70s, and I kind of was intrigued by that. So people, and this was just around when I was just before I was 18, and I'd really liked Forever Now, and I was getting real into people like Mikey Yeager,
yes,
and Chase Rushing, and of course Ollie Short, and I kind of just got inspired to start to dress differently. So, and I guess at the same time I was really getting into different styles of music too. So I was kind of looking at more late 70s punk music, like Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, and then obviously before that, like the New York Dolls. All of these like influences kind of started me on this trajectory of like dressing differently, and more like of a way in which I really wanted to see myself. And through the whole process, it was very much one of those things that, you know, I encountered kind of hostility from, I guess, you know, some of my friends or just people I would encounter in the street. Because at the time, like, you know, this is around 2005, it wasn't very common to see men in general wearing really tight-fitting jeans, you know, and clothing. So there's kind of something metaphoric about, like, going from wearing really baggy clothes, because I was wearing XL size T-shirts, sometimes double XL.
Where can we see that? We need to see that somewhere. Tell us that there's any place where...
I think there's some stuff online, like there's a video. I don't actually know if the whole video is online, but there's a video called The Neon Roller Ballad, which is a film that came out in Australia, Melbourne specifically. I think it was released in 2005, but it was mainly filmed in 2004, and I have footage in that, but I'm not sure. And I used to skate, you know, rollerblade TRS all the time, and so I had a very, you know, an image.
And were you still living in that tiny town back then, or you?
No.
Okay. So basically, the way you dress and everything, the way you dress and everything, didn't start in a small town. Like when you started, like the change.
I moved to Melbourne when I was 13. So a lot of my skating years has been in Melbourne. And I guess, like, to maybe just wrap up what I was saying in regards to the clothing, I'll segue into the Melbourne. But, like, so if you look at it from about 2005 now, the whole time, it has. You can't look at me now and go, oh, he's always been dressing like, you know, exactly as I am now, because it's been an evolutionary process. Like even let's say, like, you know, 5 years ago to 10 years ago, I was dressed within a different style to what most people were, but over the course of 10 years, I've been refining my own taste, my interests, whilst also constantly being something that's developing and evolving. And that's kind of like, I find clothing for myself as something that's playful and it's fun and I love to explore. So as much as people say to me that, oh, you look very 70s, which is generally where a lot of my, inspiration comes from. I have a lot of influences outside of the 70s period. Like, I love things that are, 80s. I love things that are 90s. I love things that are 60s and 50s. Even before that, there's periods where I was dressing, not skating wise, but I was dressing more inspired by, like, English Victorian era. And I just kind of love the idea of dressing up and being something that you're obviously not. But it's kind of funny because through that whole process, I guess it's made me feel empowered.
Mm-hmm.
It helped me, I guess, feel a sense of identity. And within that, it's funny because that whole thing of, like, being playful and dressing up, to be something that, to be someone else, so to speak, has in turn turned into this identity that people see me as, that I'm this 70s guy, this rollerblader and whatnot. But, again, it's all just like something that is constructed. It's all still just an aesthetic.
Yeah, but the thing is, with all the time that you've been, like you said, you've been kind of like dressing up, you've been having to deal with people's judgment. How do you deal with it? Because I see it, you know it better than I do, but it still happens every single time. There's a obviously people now start getting more used to the way that you dress and the way that you look, and people start.
Sure.
I guess since the beginning, always a lot of people loved it and enjoyed it, but it's weird to see, like, the 8 comments. Like, I'm sure that you saw the other day that one guy, I'm sorry if I'm going to say it, but it's just like the guy that said that he looks like Richie Jackson's gay brother. It's just, I was looking at that. I was actually laughing, just like, really? It's just.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to be honest, to me, it's kind of got to the point where I sort of see past a lot of those type of comments because I feel like a lot of them come from very uninformed perspectives. There was a point in time where I started to realize that there was no value in focusing on people who were saying negative things about me, my skating or myself or the way I dress, because there was no reason to focus on those people and those comments when I need to focus on the people who actually love and appreciate what I do. And those are the people that I am friends with, that are my family, that I admire and respect, as creatives and artists and fellow rollerbladers. So in the end, I just started realizing that, no, all of those people collectively empower me to keep doing myself far more than those few random people who are saying that they don't like what I'm doing. And usually those comments all really just come from a very, surface judgment of how I dress. It's like, I feel like when people maybe their ideas change about who I am, or like if they get to interact with me and talk with me and see that I'm just a rollerblader the same as they are, it just happens that I wear different clothes when I choose to do it. But overall, like, we could both like geek out and talk about how much, we love Ollie Short together, or Dustin Latimer, or talk about how much BG7 inspired us together in the Josh Green section. I would watch that like, days on end.
Me too.
There's so much more commonality than what we look like. And this isn't just something that's relating to rollerblading. It's humans.
Yeah, it's
you know what I mean? Like, we can be so judgmental of one another without actually interacting and meeting.
Yeah, it's amazing that what you're saying right now, it's actually for a lot of people. This should be a lesson that they should listen to and they should use it in their life, because it's actually what it is. Like, we need to learn how to filter. That's it. It's basically about filtering what we want, what we need in our lives, and what we don't need. And that's exactly what you're saying right now. It's like there will always be people that like what you do and people that don't like what you do, and you need to filter what you want to. Obviously, you're gonna list a lot more things that you want, but you need to filter what you want to keep for yourself, and that's what you do, and you do amazingly good. And that's.
Thank you. I think one of the main thing is that, like, you need to end up realizing that, you need to do these things for yourself, you know. And for me, because like I said, like when I started dressing differently, I encountered people who like, you know, would laugh at me, or like, you know, you could tell they were looking at me in the street, or even my friends who I skated with, like, who were still wearing, you know, loose fitting clothes of the time, and maybe like feeling uncomfortable that I was wearing tighter, you know, clothes or whatever. But in the end, it was something that I felt good about and I really wanted to do. So there's a sense, there was a learning experience in dressing differently and having to like experience that kind of judgment, and to learn to basically be, I don't care, this is how I want to be, as long as I'm not in physical danger, you know, like it doesn't matter if someone says they don't like it, like, all right, cool, that's fine, you know.
I do.
I mean, I mean, in the end, there's lots of things that perhaps I don't, you know, appreciate, but I can respect that someone else is choosing to do that, as long as it's not negatively affecting other people's lives. I kind of don't really have a problem with it, you know. So I think self-expression is so important, but it's also there's a point where you need to respect other people's choices to do the things that they want to do.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I love it. I love it.
You're welcome.
I love it how you go all around these questions and you have like explanations for everything. But now I have another question. So,
thanks, Ben. All right. So, yeah.
So I see that you go like in depth into everything. But when we first started this conversation, you said that you started inline skating and what used to be called aggressive inline skating. But then I've seen that with time, you slowly started changing. Like the more to the actual date that we are right now, the more you start calling it blading. So if you refer to what we do now, you call it blading, but back then you used to call it aggressive skating. Is there a reason for that?
All right. Well, so I guess that's an interesting, you know, thing to discuss, because when I first started, I just called it skating. You know, going out with my friends, I'd be like, I'm going skating, right? Because particularly at the time, there were so many different forms of skating. You know, there wasn't really a strong hierarchy in, at least where I was living, you know, in the late 90s. It was, if you skate, it was like skate culture. So there was, you know, inline skating, there was skateboarding, there was roller skating, you know, like you sort of had your preference of what you liked, but at least to me, like it was all kind of under the quote unquote action sports, extreme sports type, you know, things. So I just called it skating, and I guess particularly like aggressive skating to differentiate from recreational or speed or hockey.
It seems like somehow back then we had something against, like, I don't know why, but like people used to be like, no, allergic to
right. Well, I mean, I just liked anything on skates because I wanted to actually play roller hockey because of the Mighty Ducks, but I didn't end up signing up for a team, and then I just started street skating. And we didn't even have a skate park at the time, so I literally was just doing, you know, trying to grind benches and all that sort of stuff. But
small town problems, man.
Really,
I had the
same. Right? And then eventually skate park got built and whatnot. But as far as the name, like when I moved to Melbourne, I think that's where I started encountering more of like the kind of noticeable hostility between the inline skating and skateboarding kind of cultures, because it's a bigger city, you know, and the skate culture is way more developed. And that was at the end of 2000. So that was kind of more when that kind of, you know, hostility started to come about. And then I guess within the years, you know, as most people who've been skating for a long time know that, you know, inline skating popularity dropped and skateboarding's popularity rose. So a lot of people who I went to school with, and also family members and whatnot, they didn't really know the term skating. They didn't refer to skating as inline skating. They would just constantly think you say skate or skating, that's skateboarding, because no one roller skated, you know, in the early 2000s, at least around my you know, friendship groups and family and whatnot. And no one really inline skated anymore either. So really skate was skateboarding. So But I would say rollerblading, in the case to those sort of people who are the uninformed, and to be honest, I actually used to kind of cringe when people would at school be like, "Oh, those are blades," or "Are you going blading?" Like I saw the term blades and blading as sort of a almost derogatory sort of term, that they weren't really conscious of being mean, but it's sort of like the culture around it was that, you don't really respect it in a way, or you don't even understand it. It's like the uninformed term. It's like you're calling it blading, but it's actually just skating. So I had a lot of, like, I guess, personal issues with that, so to speak. But it really wasn't until, I think 2010 onwards, where it was like I started noticing that in the culture in general, that there was this way of people were embracing and reclaiming the term blading and blade. It sort of started to become almost like a buzzword. And I sort of started to see a sense of potential empowerment by it. By using the term rollerblading and blading, it could be understood by people who didn't skate, and it could be recognizable. And it's also that, like, the term blade sort of had like an edge to it, not to make a pun, but it's sort of, I don't know, it was something that, like, I started to consciously use and be like, oh yeah, I'm a rollerblader. So if people, I think it also was to do with myself with identifying as being an inline skater.
But don't you think that we have a lack of consistency? Because the reason why,
I agree, for sure.
The reason why I say that is, like, I'm going to give you a really simple example that you live with right now, I think, every day, as an example.
Right.
What's the name of John Julio's event? Blading Cup, right?
Blading Cup, yeah.
What's the name of his new skate brand?
Them Skates.
See?
But see, this is where this is kind of where there's sort of this interesting kind of gray area, because it could be like, you could say Blading Cup and inline skating event.
You know what I mean? But I'm not saying that anything is wrong, and I'm the last one to point anything to John Julio. Like, I love what he does, and I guess everyone does. No. And it's this, but the reason why I said is, like, I had one of these skate talks with Tom Heiser, and Tom Heiser, as you know, is right. He's one of the main heads.
Yeah, he works for Rollerblade.
Yeah, he's one of the main heads at Rollerblade, and he was as someone who is consistently in contact with the main guys at Rollerblade, like, he's one of them. Sure. He said, like, we should call it inline skating. And you see guys like, who Danny Aldridge is, right? Danny Aldridge.
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
great skater.
Danny Aldridge, he works for Rollerblade. He's a rollerblade skater, and even he's been posting a lot on Facebook lately about how it should be called this. It's not up to me, and I made a video about it. It's not up to me to say it's inline skating or rollerblading or whatever. We should call it whatever we want. But I keep thinking the same, and I don't know if you have the same idea or if you're on the same side as I am, which is the main advantage for some of these sports is that they are loyal to a name, and some of them, they're even universal, like a BMX. A BMX is a BMX no matter where you are. It's a bike, but it's a BMX.
Sure.
And I know that a BMX, it's a super specific type of bike. Of course, we all know that the biking world is huge, but you might be in China, you might be in Russia, you might be whatever. It's always going to be a BMX. And when it comes to us, it's in Portuguese. It's all
skating.
Yeah, it is all skating, but, like, it's just weird.
And they're all skates.
I keep saying, I think that somehow this can be a barrier, because in Russia there will be a name, in Polish there will be another name, and then the biggest problem here is that even when we speak English, we have different names for what we do, and then we have other sports that somehow inside skating. There's all these different things that if we all somehow, obviously we are not the same. It's not the exact same, but we use the same we use skates. We use a shoe with wheels. And we could empower ourselves by using the same name. Because, I don't know, man.
Right. Well, for me, like, I think like, 'cause I often, like I said, I do use the term rollerblading a lot. I do sometimes also use the term blading, and sometimes blades too. But I often, the common word that I use is skating and skates. These are my skates, because regardless of, whatever you choose to, say, in the end, that's what they are. They're skates.
Obviously, as long as you do it, that's the most important thing.
Well, oh no, for sure. Well, I see. To me, like, I guess using the term skating references that you're a part of a greater kind of history of what is skating. Because there's ice skating, there's roller skating, there's skateboarding, there's inline skating. They're all like sub-disciplines of this one kind of greater act, which is skating.
Exactly.
And I think that's, like, in the end, I say skating and I say skates, but it's kind of like to use the term rollerblading or to use the term blades. Or blading is kind of a more
specific,
colloquial term. Yeah, that kind of like identifies a little bit kind of more. I would say, because often rollerblading seems to be used far more. Seems to assume that it's far more used in the aggressive skating community.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. And what's your opinion about using the word aggressive? Because you're saying, like, you usually refer more to blades. And when was the last time that you say, I'm gonna go aggressive skating?
I never really ever used that. I do think it does seem to be a term that's kind of
I don't like it. I use it sometimes because it's the name of it still, but I don't like it. I don't like the word aggressive.
Right. Well, yeah, I think the other thing is it also, like, it's aggressive. It's an adjective, so it references a certain kind of style and approach. To people who don't even know, you think of the word aggressive and then you attach that to skating. It conjures up ideas of what that might be. But I wouldn't really refer to my approach, to skating.
Dude, I would call whatever you do like poetic. Aggressive. I would call it like poetic skating. It's just like
right. Sure.
I love it.
So yeah, thank you. I don't. It's that applicable, to a lot of skating in the modern age, because there's such diversity. It really made sense in terms of at the time, where a lot of it was, just pure grinding and jumping things and expressing yourself in that kind of way.
And being punks, basically.
Yeah, and skating has really developed so much, in those years, and so I don't know. It's really kind of hard to say. The term I often use to people is street street It is. That's what I often tell people that I do. Like,
but if you go to a park,
I often this in the.
Sorry, we lost you. We lost you there for a second, huh?
Oh, you're right. Sorry. So I might be, conversing with someone and telling them that I'm a skater. I might end up saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm a rollerblader" or whatnot. Yeah. Or they might say like, "Oh, I hear you rollerblade," and I tell them, and then I explain my approach or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, but my favorite thing to do is street skating. Like, I love going skating in a park or skating ramps, but the style of skating that I most identify with is street skating. So I often refer to what I do as street skating.
Let me tell you something.
And so again, I don't say street blading or street rollerblading. Like, they might have said, "Oh, I hear you rollerblade," but I end up saying street skating because I do think I like to.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, sorry. I think we were losing you again. Sorry, continue. Sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt. Sometimes I get too excited.
Oh, no problem. No, that's fine. I guess I was more just kind of like, I just really want to, state that I have always seen the potential for the harmony amongst all skating disciplines. And that's, inline skating, roller skating, and skateboarding, and even non-skating like BMX and scootering and such. Like, yes, the communities may be separate, but we all can kind of coexist because we all are kind of trying to generally achieve the same sort of thing. We're in the same landscape. You know, we're all at the same skate park. We're all in the same street spots. We're trying to, you know, the goal is really the same, is to do tricks, you know, or to do certain movements or whatever.
You have to challenge yourself, I would say.
But yeah, but the tool in which you're choosing to do it in is different. You know, it might be the inline roller skate, the skateboard, but all in a sense, it's all a part of skate culture. So I often really like to use the term skating to people in the public just to kind of reinforce that, like, we're all a part of this collective. You know, that, like, rollerblading isn't its own thing. You know, you might just use the term rollerblading to be more specific because you have four wheels in a line, and maybe they don't know the term inline skating or whatever. But in the end, we all just skate. And I personally have a lot of friends who are skateboarders, and I don't really see that much of a difference between what we're doing. We could all go to the same spots. We'll all just approach it differently, like me and 5 other rollerbladers will go to the spots.
Dude, but even if you go with skates, and it's the 5 guys, the 5 of you are going to approach it differently. It's just like, that has to do with the way you look at things and with your creativity. And man, it's
exactly.
I don't think it's because I truly believe that one of the reasons why we sometimes are hated from skateboarders or from other action sports, it's because we somehow grew too fast. And some people said it before, that we kind of grew faster than we were prepared to. We knew how to do soul grinds, backsides, and that was it. Soul grinds, frontsides, and backsides. And somehow the businessman saw an opportunity in it, and they put all they could in us. But I really believe that they put it too early. So somehow all the other action sports that were trying to get up there for so long, they felt somehow, I don't know if you can use this word, like betrayed it or something like that. It's kind of like what a lot of action sports now see in scooters. Because
I can understand that on a business, you know, industry side for sure.
Of course. But we all know when the numbers start going down a little bit, they're the first ones to go down. And that's what I tried a few weeks ago or a few months ago. I made a little video about Solomon, and people got mad at me because when I said that it's amazing they did amazing products, but yes, and I do know that it wasn't Solomon's choice to come to leave the market. But they did, because it was a business decision. So it is kind of frustrating, but like you said, we need to understand it's business. There's someone making money out of it, and if they're not making as much as they want, they just drop it. So that's kind of like what happened with. I believe that the way or how fast we grew made other sports look at us differently. And nowadays, yes, we are a lot different. A lot smaller, but a lot more solid, I would say. So,
in my opinion, I think like this is one of the best times, you know, of rollerblading I've ever been a part of. And I've been skating for 20 years, and I really think this is like an incredible time for rollerblading, inline skating right now.
Yeah.
There's so much solidarity. Across the entire globe right now.
That's awesome. Okay, so I have to say something. You were just talking about the way you like street skating and all that stuff, and I was just thinking, man, I love the way you skate flat, just flat. Sometimes to watch you skate, I don't think you need anything. You don't even need a sidewalk or anything like that. So before I go to the next question, I'm going to ask you for something.
Yep.
Whenever you have the time, whenever you have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, all I'm going to ask you too is just to put a phone on the ground and just film you doing some flat ground tricks. And please send it to me. Just that. I would just love to edit something with just you skating, like just ground. You don't even need to see the full body, just from hips down, just like your feet, the way I would love to see it. It's just, I think would be something really awesome because it's super, super unique, and it just needs to be done.
All right. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you.
I would love to.
That's very nice to hear.
I did made you a question when I first met you for the in real life, which was this year at Winter Clash. We stayed talking till too late in
Yep.
Amsterdam, and
Always good times.
I made you this question: why did you move to the USA, or how did the whole move happen, and what do you
Right.
find it to be different in the USA compared to Australia? And I would love you to, and I would want you to answer these, but before that,
Yeah.
I want you to just explain a little bit of your the way that you are connected with them and how you were connected with Velo, because that was also super interesting when
Sure.
you told me that
Okay.
you were buying your own skates and all that. Can you please just give it a little bit
Yeah,
of an
all right.
introduction, how you met John and how the whole thing
Okay.
happened and how you are like connected to John right now? And okay.
Sure. All right. Okay. So, basically, let's start. Like I said, I've been skating since 1998. Moved to Melbourne in 2000. Skated, for many years there with a number of skaters, particularly my good friends Gav Drum and Chad Thackeray. And let's go to. We had a great crew that would always get together. We're making videos and whatnot. And in 2008, I was already in university. I was studying graphic design, and I was just enjoying skating. Just as a thing to do that I was always doing. It was something I loved doing. But then when 2009 came around, my friend Ed Liu, who distributed M Goods in Australia, he told me that Alu guys.
Sorry, we lost you there for a little bit, huh? We can't hear you now. Hello?
I think
I think I lost you.
that's okay. All right.
Okay, I like you
I'll
were just
go-
saying
I'll
about
go
your
again.
friend in Australia. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, Ed Liu was the them Goods distributor in Australia, and he told me that the Valo team was coming for a tour. And so he, wasn't someone who knew all the spots in Melbourne. So he asked me like, oh, could you, do you reckon you'd be able to show them around? And of course, naturally, I was, jumped to that. And I was like, yeah, of course, I love that. So this was around the time of the what's called the ARO, the Australian Rolling Open, which is the national contest. And so they came down and they were filming for Valo for Life at the time. And at the competition, that year I placed fourth in the Open, and I guess to say I felt like I skated pretty well.
What skates were you
And
skating
after
back then?
that, well, I actually was skating Shadows at that time, but I'd probably been skating them for maybe 6 months or so. Before that, I was pretty much skating the UFS M12 for maybe I don't know, 3-4 years, interchanging those and Solomon's.
Okay.
But I started skating Shadow. So at the time I was skating Shadow, and after the contest I was with Alex Brosco, and he was saying, that he and John thought I skated really, really well. And John, he asked me whether I was getting skates, and I told him that no, I just skate for fun and whatnot. And he then said that, John was interested in having you be a part of the Valo team because they were looking to start a Valo team in Australia. So that was kind of the first instance where I never ever thought sponsorship was going to ever be something for me in skating. I just loved to do it. And so it was never on my radar. And all of a sudden, I got asked to be a part of it. And naturally, I loved Valo and I loved everything that they were doing. And, hugely admired.
And being asked by Alex Brosco, so.
Of course, that too. And I had skated Valo as well. I had the JJ light Velcros. Oh, sorry, not the lights, just the JJ Velcros.
Yeah, the black
and
ones.
So I met them at that time, and we started this, I guess, to be a part of Valo. And one of the things about winning that contest was that I qualified for the AIL championships at Woodward West later that year. And with all of this, Valo, sponsorship and getting that opportunity for AIL, I was like, well, I was having a lot of trouble actually with university at the time. And so I decided to defer my studies, and I was like, I'm going to America. So I worked for, I guess like 8 months more of the year and saved up money. Actually incurred an ankle injury during that time, which was really unfortunate. And then flew myself to America.
What did you work in?
At that time I was working, so I think I've mentioned this before somewhere else, but I've only ever had 3 jobs in my life. The first job was a supermarket that I worked for 5.5 years, and then I worked for American Apparel for 8 years, and then now where I work currently in Los Angeles. But so I was working in American Apparel at the time. That's where I was.
Okay.
So I just worked there full time and saved money and flew myself to America to be like, I'm going to go over and stay with the Valo guys and just see what happens. So I went over there, and John and Brandon were living together in the same loft that John still lives now, and I stayed with them, and they were just so welcoming, and it was like awesome because we'd already kind of got along very well in Australia, and it just I got to know them a lot more like during that period. And I was starting to film a little bit with Ivan, who was filming for Valo for Life at the time. And then I went back to Australia, and then the following year I again decided to defer my studies, and I saved money again to then make a trip out to go to the Valo for Life premiere. So I came out again a second time, and stayed and traveled with Valo guys, went to the WRS finals in New Hampshire. And so all this kind of time I just got to develop a relationship with everyone who's a part of Valo, and John obviously being a founder of Valo, I got to know John really, really well. And so, but in between that period of coming back, so from like 2011 onwards, there was a period in 2012, I think it was, where our Australian distributor wasn't able to financially distribute Valo skates anymore. So John was trying to see if he could directly send skates, but that was going to be really expensive for him. So we kind of just came to a unanimous agreement that the Australian team wasn't going to go forth anymore until things changed. Maybe we had a distributor. So from that point onwards, I guess I was technically not sponsored, but because I had developed such a connection with John and everyone a part of the Valo team, it really, and because I was already in Valo for Life, I really felt a part of the Valo family, and I really had no intentions or desires to skate any other skate. So from then on, I just purchased my own Valo skates. The only sad thing is I wasn't purchasing from an Australian skate store. I had to purchase them from America, which I think I was generally purchasing them from Aggressive Mall. So from basically 2012 up until end of 2016.
Sorry, I know what you mean by that, but for someone listening to this that don't understand why did you say sadly you didn't got them from an Australian shop?
Right. Sure. Well, I mean, there really is such a small amount of stores in Australia, and there really was only one men's store in Melbourne called Bayside Blades that still to this day supports everything in Australia, particularly the Melbourne scene. And so when I say sadly is because, they're the ones who like contributing money and putting on events and sponsoring local skaters. They're contributing to the Melbourne and Australian skate scene. So to not be able to purchase skates from them, which in turn would go directly back into them things for the local community, I was purchasing skates from Aggressive Mall who weren't giving any money to the Australian skate scene.
Basically,
so
you're saying that people should support the local industries.
Sure. But I guess for me, I felt such a loyalty to Valo that it was just the way it had to be that I had to purchase them from overseas, because that loyalty, it's not brand loyalty. It was like it's loyalty to my friends.
Yeah, of course. But
that's
as much as I
believe, But so that's why I kept buying Valos. And so even when I moved to Los Angeles, I still bought my own Valos. Like when I first moved here and like the skates that you may see me skating in Paycheck, like the cream Alex Broscos and the white Russians, I bought both of those. I didn't get those for free.
Did you went to John and bought them from John at Damn Goods shop?
No, I bought them. So the white Russians, I bought them from. Oh, I bought them from Josh from the Blade store in Malaysia. Mm-hmm. And he got them via Russia. But the creams, the Brosco cream, I bought them from Matt Mickey at Intuition. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, my point, it was just that, like, I just wanted to support, you know, I wanted to, even though I was here and John actually offered to give me skates, I just felt compelled to, you know, I felt like I was helping out, you know, like Matt Mickey and rollerblading by just purchasing from the stores, because that's what I'd been doing for 4 years prior to that. And it wasn't up until the maroon skate that I guess I got my first free pair of skates in years.
Yay!
Yeah.
Did you went out for dinner and man, you got a free dinner, man. It was like
yeah, it was. It was great. I mean, yeah, I guess what I'd done prior to that with Chapter 2 and Paycheck with those sections, that I mean, I'm in no way saying that I deserved a free pair of skates, but, you know, it definitely felt that it felt like a nice gesture to be asked if I wanted a pair of skates again. So, you know, that was nice.
That's
but
awesome.
Yeah, I guess to answer your question about how I got to from Australia to America is, so eventually I went back and finished my studies, university, studying graphic design, and I finished in 2014, and I knew that by I was an undergraduate degree, so I have a Bachelor of Design, and by doing that, I knew that I could get this visa to come and work in the US. And I already had this idea that I wanted to live abroad somewhere for even a short amount of time, because I'd never done it before. I'd never been overseas other than America, and I'd never lived overseas. So I knew I wanted to go somewhere, and I thought to myself that, well, this American visa is only valid for 1 year after you graduate. If you don't use it in that year, it expires. So I thought, well, I'll go to America first, and then if I wanted to move on and go somewhere else, I can. But I do that one first because I only have that year eligibility. So basically that visa was because I studied design and have a degree. The US government and the Australian government have this thing where if you have a bachelor degree or a graduate degree, you're able to go for 1 year and find a job and work as an exchange kind of thing. So I just moved and, you know, saved up for like basically an entire year, and then moved in April of 2016 with kind of no real plans for anything. Like to be honest, I wasn't really like planning on, you know, going and taking on the rollerblading world, you know, in California or anything like that. Like my ideas were, wherever I moved, it has to have a place where I feel like I can skate. Like I don't want to go somewhere, like, because I took a trip in 2014, and I realized that there were areas of the United States that I didn't feel like I could live in because of the weather was too extreme and you couldn't skate, you know, all year round. So in the end, my choice for Los Angeles was because it wasn't as expensive as San Francisco, which is my number one choice.
Yeah, I could imagine you in San Francisco for sure.
Yeah,
more like a few years ago than now.
Sure, definitely. But yeah, so it was kind of like I knew that I would. I don't know, it was sort of a naive choice actually. I felt, well, I didn't really know much about Los Angeles. I'd stayed there a little bit, like I stayed with Brandon Negretti and Lonnie for, you know, a few nights, but I didn't really have an idea of what Los Angeles was. But I figured there's so much industry here and there's so many creative people that there must be some kind of like allure to the place that must, you know, there must be something of interest. So I kind of went on a whim, and I've kind of, in a way, fell in love with the city since being here. At first, it really, really wasn't that. I arrived and I remember driving to where I first lived at my friend Michael Decker's house. It was like sun bleached. It was so bright. It was just like rugged concrete everywhere, like just so much advertising. And it just looked really disheveled. And coming from Melbourne, which is a really nice, clean, very green city, I was like, wow, is this really where I want to live? But then it's really like I started to realize that those are kind of like interesting personality traits, and characteristics of Los Angeles that I actually really kind of love and know that that's just a part of its charm. And then it's underneath that there's the kind of character of it that you find not on the surface level, which is the idea of this glamour and beauty that's kind of not actually really it exists in the city, but it's not everyone's reality for the most part. But so anyway, I guess to get the story back on track, I arrived in Los Angeles and lived here for a year, and then I really was enjoying myself, and I had developed such a good group of friends of who I was skating with, which was Michael Decker, Spencer Eckel, and Malcolm Hurd, who had started Chinatown Hardware. And then like we also, there was also other people who were around, like Sean Santa Maria was sometimes like coming out and skating as well from time to time. And then there was a period where like Ed Dolphin moved here, and he's still here. And then there was just like a whole bunch of people who were kind of here, and it was just a really enjoyable crew and a great atmosphere. So I wanted to keep going and here if I could. So I was able to get sponsorship through my work, and now I'm here on a 2-year visa, and so that's kind of allowed me to stay and continue working on skating projects, because that's really kind of what my life is at the moment. Is I work 4 days, and then all my other 3 days are basically just dedicated to doing skating stuff. And I feel like at the moment I'm the most productive and passionate and enthusiastic that I've ever have. Right. And I feel really, really great about skating right now.
That's awesome.
I hope that's answered the question, like how I got here.
It does.
But actually, I didn't. I mean, I guess to say it short, because I've spoken about it a lot. But you also asked the differences between America, or should I say the United States and Australia. There is a lot of difference, but there's also a lot of similarities. And the thing is like, it's more of the subtle cultural differences that really differentiate, my experience in the United States to Australia. Because, to be honest, growing up in Australia, there's a lot of, quote unquote American influence, and it's become even more so as the years have progressed. Because it was a British colony, so a lot of the cultural influences were definitely coming more from Britain and also Europe. But then as time has gone by, basically from kind of the late 90s onwards, it's very much an Americanized society. So there wasn't a lot of differences when I came. It's a huge city, Melbourne, so that's very similar to Los Angeles. So I didn't really feel like out of place whatsoever. It's just more like, subtle cultural differences of food and language. And, then there's also things like Los Angeles is a terrible transportation system. You need a car. And there's just subtle things. But overall, it's very sort of similar. It's more, to be honest, like, people, I think I've spoken with someone recently that I feel like I could live in most kind of, cities of the world, so to speak, as long as I have like-minded people that I'm around, and obviously that would include, skaters. I feel like I could live in most places. It's just, it's like the differences, like particularly in the United States, is when it gets on a more political level, and how terrible, the healthcare system is, and private healthcare, and just, and just how kind of grand the concept of capitalism is here.
Do you have an health insurance?
Exploits people, yeah.
Do you have?
I have. I do. I have travel insurance.
Okay.
So I can't just go to the doctor and get it really cheap. I would I sort of can only really use it if it's under like extreme circumstances. So that's fine. I feel like I live a pretty healthy life, so I don't care.
Okay, so your answer to the question that I made you was quite long, but there was one thing that you said that made me think of a new question that I didn't thought before. What exactly was China or is Chinatown hardware? What do you guys made, or what was the plan to do with it, or what's the state of it?
Well, sure. I mean, I guess that's more my involvement really is more just specifically, I guess, as a skater. But it was something that was started by Spencer Eckel, who is a skater from Chicago who moved out to Los Angeles, and also he good friends with Malcolm Hurd, who's another Chicago skater who moved out a little bit after Spencer, and basically they had just moved at the beginning of 2016. So when I arrived in April 2016, I had like briefly met Spencer in Chicago in 2014, and it was natural that like I was going to meet up with them and skate, like we'd already spoken to one another to do so. And it was just like an instant kind of friendship, and we share obviously a similar perspective on skating and what we want to skate and what kind of sessions like and whatnot. So it was very easy to be with them, and I knew that they had started Chinatown when I was in Australia, so I guess they were in the early stages of whatever they were doing with that. But I just skated, and then I guess naturally Malcolm was making a film, and then I just grew to be a part of that. And so the idea, I think, from Malcolm was handling all of the video stuff for Chinatown, and Spencer was, I guess, more of the one kind of going to be, running the company. So Spencer works in the fashion industry, and he studied fashion, so he has an interest in clothing. So, I mean, he with assistance from other friends of his who are graphic designers and illustrators, like designed some of the t-shirts. So they've made a bunch of t-shirts, and I guess Spencer's idea is that he wanted to create a company that he called it hardware because he wanted it to be more open, that he could have the potential to do hardware if he wanted to, in the sense of he was always inspired by Senate, how they had the nuts and bolts, and they were kind of a larger company than just wheels. So I mean, I think the idea of Chinatown as a business, I guess, is still there, and I think Spencer still has ideas or ambitions to do things. But if it's funny because I feel like Chinatown has also just become more of a concept of a family, of a group of skaters.
Kind of like a crew, right?
Kind of, yeah. It's sort of like that. Because, I mean, Spencer, I know, like, there hasn't been a product, so to speak, made for a while. And Malcolm kind of stopped filming a while ago as well. And so there was kind of like a sort of change of what's happening. But I feel like the spirit of Chinatown will kind of always be there amongst us and our friends. And so I'm currently actually working on a film which is almost it's almost finished, and that in a sense is basically a collaboration with Chinatown because it's all of us, our friends. So it's featuring myself and Sean Darst and Michael Decker and Spencer, and half of that is actually filmed by Malcolm when he was still living in Los Angeles. So half of the footage which we've collected is filmed by Malcolm, and the other half has been filmed by me. So this is very much a collaborative project. So I feel like Chinatown still exists. It may exist more as a spirit as opposed to a company. But yeah, I hope that kind of explains as to what.
Yeah, exactly what we needed to hear. Now tell us something.
Cool.
Your relation with Damn Skates. I know what you've been doing with them, but a lot of people might not know.
Sure.
And when did you first heard of Damn Skates, or when did you first heard of it, and when did you first saw the first samples?
Okay. Well, I guess as this discussion, our conversation's gone through, it might be evident that I'm rather good friends with John and have developed a good relationship with him over the years. And so John told me quite a long time ago. I can't even remember exactly when it was, but it was definitely at least early last year. And he told me that he was looking to make a skate. That the idea of making his own skate company was something he wanted to do. And I, wholeheartedly believed in John and felt like it was the next natural progression for him, as someone who's been in rollerblading for so long, to really take full control of a product, and a brand. And so, and also to see where, where he was with Valo and wasn't working, and what he could change if he was able to control it himself. So I wholeheartedly believed in what he do, and eventually told me he was going forth with it. And again, I probably saw the first sample, which was, not the sample. He brought back the boot, which was the mold. And, he told me that a few people he had told, because he didn't tell that many people, but a few people he told, they didn't really seem to like it. But I remember looking at it with him and kind of seeing that I really think that there's promise in this skate, because it does have it sort of features, I felt, the combination of like a V13, but then also somehow it combines a Solomon as well, more of like a wideness to it and a more rounded sort of shape, because a lot of people love Solomons, and there was one of the things that people felt with, V13s, that it was too narrow for their foot. So I really felt that there was promise for it, and I, kind of encouraged him to say that there's promise here. And
did you help with with the adjustments done to the mold?
Well, yeah. So then he brought back the first sample, and so the first skate was a really, really shiny black with a liner which had a neon green through it, and then it also had the little, it looked kind of similar to the USD Richie Eisler Aeon.
Yeah.
And so
that 80s retro look.
Exactly. So the first kind of sample was a matte version of the skate. The little like bumps, which were close to the eyelets, were all smoothened out, so they weren't there anymore. And then he'd also developed sole plate. And so when you saw that, it was like, wow, this is really transforming into something completely different. And then I knew that Sean Darst was going to be part of the company. I knew that John was working with Cruz, and that Cruz and Sean were going to, I guess, be representing them in when it's going to be announced. And then, so I guess I was just more as someone who was a friend, to John, and like we would just talk about what Ben was and everything. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he would just confide in me and whatnot. And so, but then they wanted to obviously film something to promote the release of it. And I'd been filming with Sean for a couple of months, maybe 3 months or so, for my video. And Sean actually mentioned it to John. He was like, I think, maybe it'd be a good idea to ask Robbie if he wants to film the promo, because Sean, me and Sean skating together was just like a no-brainer, and it was always such a great, easy, working relationship to film. And Sean really liked what I had been producing film-wise in skating edits and whatnot, and he believed in what I could do. So I think John also, felt the same. So it just felt like a natural thing to go forward. So we just started going out and filming for the promo.
You were also close to them, right? That also made a huge difference.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I'm like, because Sean lives in, like 15 minutes from my house, and I'd known John for so long, and like I'd also, had been friends with Cruz for a number of years as well. I met Cruz in 2009, and he always lived in Long Beach. So even when I moved to LA, I didn't see him all the time, because I guess we tend to skate in LA more so than going to other cities like Long Beach and whatnot, which is more like an hour away, but also with traffic it can be longer. But so yeah, I'd known Cruz for a long time as well. I'd never filmed for him, never filmed him, but yeah, it was very, very easy, and it was such a fun experience, like doing that promo. And but one of the other things about it as well is that I guess might be interesting to you is that I've been around, filmmaking and rollerblading for so many years with a lot of my friends who are the ones who were, the camera operators and the editors and whatnot. And I would maybe help, like I could, film, second angle, or I'd film someone doing a line or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I was never really the one to make my own films, because there's sort of like a thing in skating where I feel like within your crew, there's always like one person who almost becomes the designated filmer and the one who makes a video.
Yes.
And it's kind of sometimes hard to also have someone else come into that mix and to then be like, oh no, we're going to film for mine. So I always just helped my other, I always just helped my friends, so like I grew up skating with Ryan and Scott Farrell, who were Farrell Media, and they made the Neon Roller Ballad. And then I was, one of my best friends, Jared Sakurai, like I skated with him, and he was the filmer. So it was his film. And then I skated with Craig Smith, and I did Seven Rats, and that was his film. And then I went, would film with Dom West for Chapter 2, which Jared also helped film for that as well. But it was also always these other people. And then I moved to to Los Angeles, and I filmed with Malcolm for Paycheck. So this was the sort of first time that was me, the one who's filming, because Malcolm was selling his camera. So I bought, I wanted the camera to stay within our group of friends. So I bought the camera from Malcolm, and I guess I assumed the role of the filmer in our crew. So I started.
What camera was that?
Is it Panasonic HVX 200?
Okay. Is it the 4K one? Is that the one?
No. It's
the first version of it. Yeah, there's a new one.
Yeah, it's an older HD camera. Yeah. But, it has a servo zoom and everything.
Yeah.
But it was the first time that I really felt that I was like I had the opportunity and almost the responsibility to be the one to film my friends. So as much as I wanted to skate and do tricks, which I always loved doing, I then had to stop and be like, oh, do you want to film that? And so I was consciously filming my other friends, Sean and Michael and such. So I guess that whole experience of doing the Them promo was me having the opportunity to make a film or a short film, and I loved it. And I've always really enjoyed editing as well. I actually have edited more so than being the camera operator in the past for skating films, because I've edited friends' skating stuff as opposed to filming it.
But that's awesome. It's just the truth is, I would expect, knowing how close Ivan Nares and John are, I would expect at first to see that video being made by Ivan or something. But the truth is, when I saw it done by you, like, it's amazing. I love it. I would say that.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if you kind of have like the same, I don't know how to explain. It kind of feels like your style of editing. Yeah, your style of filming and editing also reminds me of what Patrick Reeder is doing. I know that you guys are friends, but
sure, yeah,
it's kind of like goes along. I don't know if it goes with you too.
Well, I can talk a bit about that, because I feel like I've always been observing the way, like, I guess this comes back to like talking about style and the way I dress and whatnot. I feel like I'm a really good observer. Like, I look at things and I can appreciate aesthetics and styles, and so I always looked at what other people did as the way to do things. And then it's, as growing up, I always like imitated people because I saw that what they did was the best. And it's only really in time that, like I said, with the way I dress and the way I've chosen to skate, is it's developed into my own way of seeing things, own self-expression. So with filming, like, I've always loved filmmaking, and that's also with narrative films and such, cinema. But with skating, like, because I was filming with Malcolm, I sort of would see how he would film and how he'd approach to look at the trick and, and whatnot. And I would kind of try to replicate how he did it, because I knew the way I would film him, it fit in with his movie, right? Mm-hmm. So I naturally started to, I guess, develop those practices and the way of seeing things which would mirror what Malcolm and Patrick and such were doing. And I guess like one of the things I feel like that's similar with about all of them is it's kind of a more focused. It has a more cinematic approach, I think. It's really trying to focus on not just the trick, but also trying to convey a sense of emotion through it. Because really, the takes are kind of longer. You know, you're maybe focusing on the facial expression or the movements of the skates, and trying to be more emotive overall with how you capture the skating. At least that's how, when I've had this opportunity to make stuff myself, is kind of how I'm approaching it. I've always felt there's more to skating than just the physical act of performing the trick. There's a whole, and I actually made a short film about it in my final year of high school. Tried to, at least I did it very poorly, I will say, but it was trying to basically express the idea of the mental, kind of roller coaster ride that we skaters go through when we're performing tricks, of like having to overcome the fear and anxiety of doing things. And I've always tried to really focus on that now that I'm filming someone, because I feel like that's such an integral part of skating. And if we're able to document that and showcase that, I feel like it not only I think it's not only interesting to skaters themselves because they'll identify with it, but it's also, I think, something that people who don't skate are able to identify with because it's emotive, it's humanistic, where if people are kind of frustrated or they're seeing pain or whatever, so I think emotion is something that humans understand. It's not just skating specific, where if someone's doing a true spin topsoil down a handrail, you can't, someone who doesn't skate, they may not know the difference between that, and
yes,
and something else, another technical trick. So yeah, that's just kind of how I feel like my approach has been.
Okay.
Anyway,
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, something that is maybe is related with it, maybe has nothing to do with it. You remember, like back in the days, most of the skate videos, they used to have like a fall section. Nowadays,
yeah,
but it's kind of like goes with what you were saying. It's different because it's not about like it's not as deep as what you were talking about right now. But the truth is, we don't have them anymore. Why do you think that happens? Why do you man, I'm not saying that we need those, and I used to hate those. I used to look to the side.
Yeah.
But somehow it used to be a big thing, and now we don't have them anymore. No full section.
Well, I can definitely say something about that. So I don't really think it's that valuable to have an entire section that's dedicated purely to the falls. I really feel like it's something that was like a product of its time, the 90s. Because it was obviously this whole part of, aggressive skating about like withstanding the injury and seeing the kind of carnage and whatnot. Sort of seemed to be a part of the culture. But like for me, I think I like, it's funny because a lot of skate films really sometimes they don't show any falls, and that's completely fine as well. But I'm actually feel like I'm pro falls being shown. It just depends on what they are or like what you're kind of trying to say by the choice of using that fall. Because by showing a fall, it can really show struggle, it can show the implications of what could go wrong with the act of what we do, which is inherently dangerous, regardless of what kind of scale you do your tricks on. You don't have to do a trick crawl that's 10 by 10 off a roof, for that, that's inherently dangerous, but also just finding a ledge can be dangerous. You could do it wrong and slip, and you could fall wrong and hit your head. Like, it's all inherently dangerous. So, like, I don't necessarily think it may not be appropriate to show a horrific fall in a film. Like, I don't know if I would do that. Like, I'm not saying no, but it's more like maybe the viewer doesn't need to see someone like breaking their ankle, in a compound fracture or something. But for instance, let's take the Them promo, for example. The last part where you see Sean on the gap, it starts with him falling. And you see the kind of mental struggle that he's experiencing and the kind of level of frustration, because that's a big, you see the gap until after that showcase of emotion. But it highlights that all the effort that goes into performing that trick, it takes a toll.
And the risk factor.
Yeah, and we all know as skaters, like how many times sometimes when you're trying something that involves a lot of physicality and like the taking of impact and whatnot, it really wears you down physically and mentally. Like there's a point sometimes if you haven't landed it after 10 tries, you may not land it at all because you don't have the energy or the mental, focus to perform it anymore. And so I think it's kind of important sometimes where applicable to kind of highlight that. And so that might be a fall. So I think they still have their place. It's just like there's ways of doing it tasteful and maybe there's ways where it's not so tasteful. If that answers the question.
Yes, it does. Awesome. So I have to tell you something, and I have to tell this to the people listening to this still, because it's almost 1.5 hours of talk, but
okay.
It's all good. I need to tell you, I told you before, but I need to tell everyone about this. So basically, usually I'm at the skate shop almost every day, and there's a few videos that we play, and there's one video that when we used to be in the skate park, because we moved out of the skate park, when that video part used to play, somehow people used to stop and watch, and that was your Vine Street Chapter 2 section. I don't know. It's all the color, it's the way you skate, it's the way you move, it's the way you dress, it's the way it's filmed, obviously, it's the music, the whole thing. I just have to say congratulations to you and obviously to Dom West. It's just somehow
thank you.
There's a lot of stuff playing, and there's like the latest DVD, VODs. There's a lot of things playing, but somehow that seems to be one of the catchiest things that I put on TV. So I might have sold a few pairs of skates because of that video. So thank you so much.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Seriously, I just have to say thank you.
Sick. Thanks, man.
And I guess that was it. I'm really, really happy with it. I don't know if there's anything else that you want to talk about. Is there anything that you would like to talk?
Well, I mean, I feel like we could talk for hours.
I know. No.
I guess if I were to end it with anything, I just feel that I would like to just tell anyone who's listening, just to obviously just enjoy skating and never to be afraid to, go a little different, to do like if you feel compelled to do something that might be unusual to your friends or even to yourself, but there's like an inclination within you telling you to try that or to be a bit more experimental or whatever, like just take that chance, because I really feel like in life you get the most when you're kind of like on the fringe, where you put yourself in a state of vulnerability and you kind of have to innately act and be confident and to have conviction and to go forth. So I think like just try, because there's no time than the moment. I feel like I have been burdened by perfectionism my entire life, and I feel like right now I have learned to kind of compromise, so to speak, whereas like I was withheld by my perfectionism for a lot of times that would stop me from achieving and being productive. And so I think just make, just go out there and like do whatever and try things and like, just be respectful and be joyful and just have a good experience out there in skating, because there's so many ways you can do it. And like I grew up, in the time where I really feel like it was very kind of one way, and I honestly thought that I still have problems with this. I never thought I was that good of a rollerblader. Like I never thought I was a good skater. And I look at myself now and people appreciating what I do, and sometimes like I can't understand it and I can't believe it, because I've never seen myself in through that same perspective, because I was always comparing myself to other people, and I I think that's one of the things that, like, I knew I was never going to be able to be, like Brian Aragon, or as technical as Ian McLeod, or, as kind of wild and crazy as Carlos Pianowski or Stefan Horngacher or something, like I didn't have the inclination to seek that, to do it. So I was always intrigued by other skaters who had it a little bit differently, like Chase Rushing or, Ollie Short, Santa Maria, Mike Yeager. So, and I, at a session where maybe everyone was trying one thing, I would kind of go off and try something else, So as a message, look, never feel that whatever the norm is and you not being able to see yourself as identifying with it, or like that there is no measure of what is good, or the best or the way you should do it, because you can do what you want to do and you can be skillful at it. And in the end, you can convey a sense of joy, and you can get other people on skates, and you can just inspire people. You don't have to jump off a roof. You can if you want, but it's in the end, it's like if you're just like do what you do, and that you can let that like externally, be seen by people. I feel like that resonates with people, and they can identify with that more. And that's however your approach is. So just go forth and do as you do, and learn along the way.
Wow. Seriously. Amazing. I was just like, no, man. I don't know. You got me speechless. Thank you so much. I'm going to be using these last part.
Oh, no worries.
I'm seriously going to use this last part of you just talking. And I'm going to need you just skating flat ground. I really need that footage. And I'm going to use these little
I will do that for you.
Yes, man. I will use these little piss of you talking with that of you skating flat, and I can see it, man. It's just, oh my God. I'm excited about this one. Thank you so much for your time and for what you've been doing for all of us skaters.
Oh, you're welcome, Ricardo.
And
thank you for this opportunity.
Oh man, you kidding me? Like, no, thank you. I guess like the rest of the world is, whoever listened to this, it's really grateful, and it's happy to have you in the skating industry. So
thank you very much. That means a lot.
Thank you so much, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you for today, and have a good night. I'm going to have a good day. Cheers, man.
Yeah, you do. All right, man.
Thank you, Robbie. Cheers, man.
See you, Ricardo. Cheers. Take care, mate. Bye.
Bye. And that was it. Mr. Robbie Pitts. I don't even know what to say. Like, it got me speechless. I just, when he talks, it's just like, I don't know. I was never into poetry, or I was never into reading books, but listening to Robbie talking about skating is just motivating. I don't know about you guys. It's morning here. I want to say thank you to everyone who listened to this. If you really enjoyed what you listened today, and if you're not subscribing to this channel, maybe do so. There's a little subscribe button. If that is red, you're going to need to press on it, and it's going to become gray. And then in front of it, there will be showing a bell. If you press on that bell, you'll get notifications every time I upload one of these in your phone or on your email, and it's a good way for you to be one of the first ones to listen to this. Other than that, if you like this one, do not forget to give me some thumbs up. And the reason why I always say that, it's whenever you give me thumbs up, whenever you comment a video, you're basically telling YouTube, the YouTube algorithm, that you enjoy these videos, and YouTube is going to suggest these videos to more people, and it's a way for all of us to make inline skating, blading, like some people call it, rollerblading, whatever you want to call it, more popular, and somehow to make this grow. So thank you guys so much, and like I always say, please do not forget why we all started skating, because it's fun. Cheers, and see you soon.
Vou viver até quando